Career Fair. Tonight, it is my pleasure to open our panel discussion entitled Caring for the Whole Child in Times of COVID, a panel conversation with New York City educators, school counselors, and family advocates. Moderating today's conversation is Dr. Sarah Kreider, lecturer in applied linguistics in TESOL at Teachers College. So without further ado, Dr. Kreider, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much for organizing this. And most of all, thank you to our panelists. I'm honored to be here with you. Speaking of the whole child and thus the whole person, I thought it would be nice to just take a minute and invite all of us attendees, panelists, to just notice how we're sitting, make sure we're comfortable. I like to look around the room that I'm in when I'm on Zoom. So if you'd like to join me in doing that, and just taking a breath together, if that feels right to you. All right, thank you. So to get us started, it would be great to have some introductions. And I'm wondering if each one of you, of our panelists, could introduce yourselves and just tell us who you are, where you work, and if you'd like to share how you've been working with the people you work with this year. So hybrid, remote, in person, some combination of that, and how that might have affected your own day-to-day work life. I think that would be a great way to get us situated with some context. So why don't we, Charlie, would you mind starting us off?
Sure. Hi,
Thank you.
I'm Charlie, Charlotte Vinson. I use she, her pronouns. I, I'm so excited to be back in the TC space. I graduated from the Elementary Inclusive Ed program 2015, 16, I don't know, time ago. I currently teach at the Young Women's Leadership School of the Bronx. I primarily teach sixth grade social studies, but I also teach a section of AP seminar. And it's a course that where you design the curriculum. So we're looking at race and popular culture. I also coach track. I'm the anti-racist education liaison at my school. And our school we're 6 through 12. Um, we are hybrid, but I personally am teaching fully remotely. And I'm over it. But we're making do. Most of our students, we have like around 600 students, but probably only 60 of them are going into the building at any point. And because of this, I feel like my work has transitioned. I'm not only a teacher and all the things that teachers are, but I also feel like I'm an IT specialist, and I have learned a lot about the digital world very quickly, and it's exhausting, and I'd much rather be a teacher, but this is the world that we're living in, and I'm making do. I am making do.
Mhm. Thank you. I saw so many nods as you were talking about wanting to be being a teacher and everything else that we're doing. Let's move on. I'm just kind of going around with the order on my screen. So Selena, would you mind introducing yourselves and telling us a bit about your work in this past year?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Selena. I am I'm an elementary school teacher right now at a school called PS 119 in the Bronx. It is just a really tight-knit community school. The students and family are just really in love with the school. We have a lot of really passionate parent and family volunteers, students that come back and visit the school. And it's just a very, just like a warm community that has definitely been impacted by the pandemic as many others have. We have students right now, we like to call ourselves an international school because most of our parents have committed to remote learning. That's what they prefer at the moment. And yet we have parents that are, and families and students that are learning remotely from California, Pennsylvania, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, like they really don't want to leave the school, and they're really committed to being connected to PS 119. So that definitely inspires me to, especially during this time period, to know that everybody is really committed. And this year I have been teaching remotely. I've been teaching remotely since last spring. And we really wanted to hit the ground running this year because last spring when school shut down in March, it was just obviously very difficult for everybody. And it was hard for us to put a real plan in place and a real system and like a model that would benefit children. So over the summer, we've really like worked to make sure that our remote learning model was strong and that we could replicate a lot of what we were normally doing. So it's been a lot of work being able to do that because we're kind of rewriting curriculum, especially the literacy curriculum. We're rewriting it to be digital in the moment, in the sense, and and to echo what Charlotte had said, like we're not many of us are not necessarily tech savvy, but we are now, and luckily I've always loved ed tech and I've always loved digital tools, so it's definitely helped me connect with my colleagues in that way and being able to share practices with them. They're able to share what they're learning with me, and what's really been amazing is to see how much everybody is learning. Like teachers who were having trouble opening up like Gmail accounts a year ago are now like creating these amazing videos and using Edpuzzle and like all these other really cool things. So that's amazing to see, and the students as well. Like it's been cool, just really inspiring to see how much they're getting from this in a lot of different ways they wouldn't otherwise.
Thank you. You're bringing in some of the threads that I'm going to hopefully be bringing in with some future questions. So thank you. That's really lovely to hear. Let's see, who's next on my screen? Deanna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna Hassan-Jaikai. I graduated from Teachers College in 2017 from the school counseling program. I'm currently a school counselor at Bronxville High School. This is my first year at this school, so what a year to start, as many people around the school have been saying. Previously, I was at an international boarding school in Westchester. So this year, it's been very interesting getting to know most of the students online. Our school has been hybrid for most of the year, and luckily we've been able to bring in the entire high school starting this week for in-person, with the exception of students that are still, deciding to stay fully remote. So it's been quite an interesting experience, starting at a new school and trying to learn the culture while people are in masks and socially distanced. And a lot of my classroom lessons have been exclusively on Zoom. So similarly to what Selena was saying, it's finding new online technology to engage the students. We've been using Pear Deck. Jamboard has become our best friend. So yeah, that's a little bit about the work that I'm doing. I work with students in grades 9 to 12. I'm the co-advisor for the student faculty legislature on campus, which we've been meeting exclusively on Zoom. And I also am a part of the freshman transition program at my school and the DEI committee.
Great. Thank you, Deanna. And Josephine.
Hi, my name is Josephine Ishman. I'm with Manhattan's Community Board 4, and we are a legislative advisory board to City Council, the Mayor's Office, and a host of other city agencies, including the Department of Education. So some of the work that I do, I'm on the Education Committee, and my focus is working with students living in shelters and students experiencing poverty. And some of the initiatives that we've begun, actually, we have partnered with Teachers College. So I'm so happy to be at this table. I'm always happy to be here. One of the initiatives that we had worked on was getting student teachers to work with some of our high need students in our Title I schools in things like early reading. So that partnership has been very successful. And we have also gotten tutoring into some of our schools where students are falling behind because of absenteeism. Most students living in shelters right now are actually 100% remote because their families are afraid that the child may get sick and they don't have health insurance. There are a host of reasons, or they don't want the child traveling on the subway. So it's been quite a different year. And I can definitely understand what everyone else and agree what everyone else is saying. It's nice to see, that so many people have sort of picked up and are learning all these different platforms. But you do miss the old world too. And just recently, I was on a government an AP class in one of our local high schools, and it was so strange to talk to 30 black boxes, instead of actually seeing faces. So that's been some, of the changes that we're seeing. And I know that it's hard to relate to, but I'm very grateful for all the teachers doing this work. Thank you.
Mm, thank you. I second that from the bottom of my heart. As someone who visits classes, I'm just always in awe, and visits online this year. So the next question I have is it's a big picture question, and we thought it would be a nice way to start us off. And it's just, what does the phrase whole child mean to you? And as you've all been talking, I've been thinking about a kind of a related question, which is, does it mean something different? Has it meant something different this past year than it meant previous years, right? So has this transition, has COVID times or teaching online shifted your way of understanding what it means to think about the whole child? Or the whole adolescent, for those of you who are working with older students. And I'd love to just open it up if one of the four of you feels like you're ready to jump in and start with that question, and then we can see who else has something to add.
Yes, I'm happy to jump in on that. So for me, I mean, as a school counselor, I'm constantly thinking about the whole child. I'm thinking about, how are they feeling? How are they doing in school? What is their home life like? What are their interests and passions? So kind of putting all these things together and trying to figure out who this child really is. And in this year, it's been, increasingly difficult to do so. Normally, I would see students hanging out in the hallway or in the cafeteria. I would go to sports games. I would see them in plays and things like that. So I've been getting to know the students mainly on Zoom, and I've been trying to find out as much information as I can about them, what their goals are, what their interests are, what they like to do at school, a little bit about their families, their siblings. So trying to put these puzzle pieces together in the best way I can. So this year, it's looked a lot differently, but it's amazing what students will kind of reveal even on Zoom or in an email. There's many ways to connect to students. It's all about being a warm person who the student feels like they can trust and talk to, and create a safe space even in the online sphere. I guess that's my perspective on that question.
Thank you. Charlie, I saw you nodding when Deanna was talking about what students, I think it was when she said what students will reveal.
Yes. I am I'm so tired of remote learning because I'm not with my students, and I'm not like, that is why I teach, is to hang out with these cool young people that I have the honor to work with. And I've been really surprised with how well we're still able to build community and still able to make those connections. For me, the whole child, when I'm thinking about educating the whole child, I have to recognize that I seek to educate as a whole teacher. Like, I'm a whole individual as well. And our students are people, and they're incredible people, and they're funny, and they're smart, and they have hurts and hangups, and so do I. And I have learned so much about my students, and they have felt comfortable opening up to me because I'm very vulnerable with them. And I will tell them when I'm not having a good day. It's been really rough. And a few weeks, maybe a couple months ago, I had to take a couple days off just because I was not in a good place. And the students are so sweet. Any day that I'm not there, like, Miss Vincent, are you okay? What happened? What happened? And I thought about it a lot, and I said, let me use this opportunity to like explain how depression works sometimes. And like, I made a little Loom video talking about my experiences with depression. And like, sometimes I'm not in a good place. And if I want to provide in the way that, if I want to provide to you the things that you deserve, and I want to sow into you the things that you deserve, I need to take care of myself. And that's what I need to do right now. And they were like, oh, I have days like that too sometimes. And like offering up to them my humanity has made them feel safe to do that as well, and made them feel like, okay, I can be my full authentic self in this space because my teacher's doing that too. So educating the whole child and caring for the whole child is about creating space for them to be their whole complete selves. And as much as I'm tired of remote learning, I feel like we've created a lot more of those spaces, and like we're having more non-academic time. And I get to spend 20 minutes with my homeroom, and we're just watching WandaVision, and we make art on Mondays. And I really hope that, I feel like this time has helped us to remember what really matters. And I really hope that, one, we don't go back to normal because normal wasn't working. When we go into this new future that we're entering, that the things that we're learning and the shifts that we've made in this time carry on.
I feel like I have to sit with that for a minute. You know, as someone who teaches teachers, I'm constantly thinking about that, the border between boundaries and I think you said offering our whole humanity to our students, which is such a beautiful way of putting that. Um, I'd love to hear from Selena and Josephine, your take, given kind of different contexts, like not only academic contexts, I think for you, Josephine, and younger children, Selena.
So I agree wholeheartedly with what Charlie had said. I think that caring for the whole child for me means really acknowledging their life experiences. And sometimes those life experiences are very difficult, certainly if you're living in a shelter. So, one of the things that I've been advocating for is that, a lot of times, especially with the younger children, when they've been in a hotel room all night, by the time they get, or, for a day or every other day, they're not even in school every day. So when they finally do get to school, they're very jumpy, and it's very hard for them to sit in a chair and actually listen to a lesson. So, how do we create spaces for those children to sort of run around and have some maybe activity before they have to sit at a desk all day? So one of our schools now is opening the gym in the mornings, so kids will have a space to sort of run around and let out some energy before having to go and sit in their chair. So I think a lot of this is about, for kids, is just to really acknowledge that these systems that they didn't create, but they're certainly a part of, whether it's structural racism or all of our issues that we have going on in terms of homelessness, to actually acknowledge where they're coming from and try to create some way of leveling the playing field, even if it's just something like, okay, here you're going to get a little bit of playtime before actually having to sit down.
Thank you. Thank you.
I definitely agree wholeheartedly with everything that has been shared so far. I think this year I definitely have been redefining what the whole child means. And I think one, because priorities have really shifted and they need to shift, especially with everything that's happening to students right now. And I think that the whole child for me has always meant definitely being able to see beyond just the labels that we put on children because of the educational system. And I think, unfortunately, even without realizing, I think we kind of tend to categorize and judge students and then see them through these really sometimes almost like medical lenses where we don't really see them as people anymore. And they're just like struggling readers, or, have anxiety around math, or, but we don't really quite see who the person really is and what they are doing, and the things that they are passionate about, how they are learning, how they are progressing. So that for me is a big part of looking at the whole child, like what's actually happening, and having like an asset-based mindset and thinking about the ways that we look at children, beyond just academics, or just beyond just a deficit kind of model. And I think that this year, more so than ever, I've really been focusing on, and I always have focused on the social emotional, but really this year I've kind of made that my priority, more so than I ever have. And because I have students who are, don't have secure housing, students that have family members that currently have COVID, students whose families are hospitalized and in and out of the hospital, and students themselves who are sick. So it's a very, obviously that's not a condition to really be focusing necessarily on academics all the time. And I think what they really need is that social emotional connection and that support, and for teachers to hold space for that and to create those nurturing environments. And I think that is possible even online. Like, obviously I would love to be in person with them, but I think this has pushed me to think about how can I support a child even when I'm not physically with them. And I think because of that, I've become a better teacher this year, because I really have had to be creative about whether it's an email or a message in the chat, or just a Google Meet that we have, during lunchtime, texting parents, calling home, just all these ways of communicating that not only allow us to learn more about each other and for me to really learn more about the student, but also just so that they know that there's someone there, like, and there's someone always there for them in some way. Even though I'm not physically there, I'm still there. And I think that sometimes that means even more, in a sense. And so, and I also think it's been important too for parents who have been home and families who have been home with the child when they're learning remotely. It's allowed me to see the whole child in a different perspective, because I'm almost teaching in their living room, I'm teaching in their kitchen, and I've been able to interact with, caregivers and parents and older siblings and cousins and grandparents in a way that I never would have before. And I think that that's opened up a whole new world for me to be able to see them in their home life, and for the families to also be able to be a part of the school, and their educational experience in a different way.
Okay, I have so many follow-up questions for all of you. This isn't even on our list, but I was really struck with all four of what you just said about a sense of some things that you will be carrying forward, as we move into hopefully being in person again. And Charlie, you said what we had before wasn't working. I think I I certainly second that. I'm guessing many of us here do. Um, and yes, I see your note, Charlie, and I was thinking about that, Selena, the question of families, and I'm guessing, Josephine, that this is a big part of your work too. Um, so I'm wondering what you feel like you'll carry as you move back into face-to-face, and particularly how that might relate to your relationships with the whole family. Does that make sense as a question? Because I know it wasn't on the list, but I really want to hear that from all of you. Um, what are you thinking about in terms of how you're going to be interacting with families, and perhaps differently with children moving forward? And Selena, would you mind starting off? Because I feel like you were headed in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that, um, I think one, being able to think about how to redefine times and spaces to make things more accessible for families and to get rid of barriers. Like, for instance, like with our parent teacher conference this year, it was remote. And I think that was really powerful because, well, we've had a few already, but I think it just allowed families to access it in ways that they haven't before, because they didn't have to worry about getting sitters. They didn't have to worry about taking time off of work. And these are a lot of things that created obstacles for families in order to be involved in school, in which now, we can do, if we're able to do it remotely, why not, if that's easier for the families. So I think being able to rethink that, because I think unfortunately schools have not been places that have really been thinking about who their families are. And I unfortunately think we have like a one size fits all approach to how to engage parents. And what I'm hoping to come from this is really thinking about, who are my parents? Like, what do they do during the day? Like, how would they best be able, like, what's most accessible for them? What do their schedules look like? What are they interested in seeing? And also being able to continue to keep my classroom door open, in the sense that they can still, even if we're back in the classroom, still be a part of the classroom in a way that they are now, where they're able to see their child participating in a reading lesson, where they're able to see their child having discussions, where they're able to see real glimpses of instruction and practices, because I think that has actually helped parents feel that they've always had the power, but I think now they realize, like, this is something that I can be a part of, and this is something that I think they feel more welcomed into the school. And I don't want that to end and like a door to be shut on them, like literally and figuratively, next school year. So I think we have to continue to just rethink, how do we keep that open for them.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I really agree with a lot of what you're saying. I was nodding my head for most of that. We've had so much more turnout with Zoom meetings for parents at night. And even if parents were missing the Zoom meeting, as we're doing today, we have the opportunity to record it and send it out. So if parents are missing those opportunities, they're not really missing it, because they'll still have access to those recordings. Also, I would say Google Classroom has been a game changer for me as a counselor, this year and last year, using it, because students are involved, families can have access to the Google Classroom to really see what exactly we're doing. They can see the lessons that we've prepared, things like that. So I really feel like this year has been amazing for communication with families and students and just really getting to know people. And I really appreciated what Selena and Charlotte and others have said about literally getting a window into our students' lives, meeting their pets, seeing their siblings, being a part of their home in some kind of way. And we're also letting them into our homes as well. The amount of times I've had to Zoom, from home, and, having that vulnerability with the students, I think has really been a good opportunity to just have that open communication and just different channels of communication. It used to be just a phone call or maybe an email, but now we have so many other platforms to reach parents and students, and Zoom has created a good opportunity to be flexible with time and space. So I just wanted to add that I've really noticed a difference with that, and I want that to continue.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned parent teacher conferences or family teacher conferences, because we just had ours last week, and it's we do all of ours in one day. I get a 5-minute window with 45 families. It's a whirlwind.
Wow.
It's a whirlwind. But I feel like this year, ever since the summer program that I was like, we do like an orientation for the 6th graders. Ever since 6th grade orientation, I've felt so much more connected to parents and families, because we've had to make ourselves so available to them so that they can access everything. And with that, I just, our parent teacher conference or family teacher conferences, there were so many moments. I'm not a parent, and I cannot imagine how difficult this time is. I'm a teacher, I'm struggling, but no, I don't have children that I need to worry about and a job that I need, like, I cannot imagine what parents are going through. And there were so many conferences that I had with parents, and just seeing like their fears and their worries about their children. And I was just given so many opportunities to, I'm getting emotional. Like there was more than one time where I'm just getting to hold space for a mom who's stressed out. And I got to reassure her and tell her that her child is doing great and she doesn't need to worry about the missing assignments. And like, it just, I feel like because we've been forced to slow down and adjust our perspective and remember what matters, we've been given more opportunities to support the whole family in ways, because times are rough, people are struggling, and we need to, I'm just honored that I can offer whatever support that I can. So that's what I really hope continues, is the relationships that I'm building with my students' families.
That makes me so happy to hear, because, I'm a parent, but also in working with the families that I do, it's so hard for a family who's, under so much stress, especially if they're living in a shelter. Often these families, the parents don't have college education. Sometimes they have not graduated from high school. So they're very intimidated walking into a school. And even, myself, I have a master's degree, but still in certain spaces, it, doesn't matter as much. So I can understand how these families feel. And quite often, they're a lot of times they're just afraid. And so we're trying to work on getting our families to feel more confident and being more engaged with the school. So I'm so happy to hear this coming from teachers, to create an open space for families to come in and have these conversations, because I know that parents want to engage, but they're very, and I always tell parents that, we are all our child's first teacher. You don't have to know algebra, to help your kid with homework. There are other ways that, you can work with your child. So it's really good to hear all of that. And I hope that, we're going to continue all of this, this community engagement, once we go back to school, because once the testing comes, all the testing comes back and all of that, I know it's going to be hard to keep all of this in mind, but families are going to be suffering for years to come from the fallout of all of this. So I think that just keeping that trauma-informed care, in mind, is going to be crucial for the next couple of years.
Josephine, you lead me straight into our next question, which is actually, I think it's from Charlie. It's from one of you, which is, we have on this panel, we have two teachers, we have an advocate for families in the shelter system, we have a counselor. What would you say to each other in the roles that you are in terms of what kinds of support a whole child needs and how we can be supporting our students together? Does that make sense as a question? Like, there are so many different people and so many different roles involved in our children's lives, and maybe we can like take this tiny moment to talk to each other from our different roles. And I'm going to add the role of parent. I know, Josephine, you shared that you're a parent. I'm a parent. It would also be interesting to hear your perspectives on what parents can be doing. Would you like to start that off, Josephine? Because you
Sure.
touched on it
Yes,
in your
yes,
last
yes,
answer. Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you.
I mean, this group is so terrific. You guys are, you're ahead of the game already, right? You're talking about truth and compassion, and that's what, our students need, and their families as well. So you're already doing that work. It's very good to hear that. There are other things that teachers have done too. Like, for instance, in 4 of my schools now, where we have large populations of kids who are either in shelters or dealing with poverty, they've built closets. So, they've worked with their PTAs and their community boards, the CEC, to have items on hand like calendars for students that can't afford them, toiletries, other school supplies, T-shirts, if a child, doesn't, come to school with clean clothing. So all of those things are extremely helpful and sort of, it's sort of building on that, before the problem even gets there. So it's like to have it on hand. So if, a child comes in and they don't have clean clothing, well, you have a T-shirt that you can give to a child and make them feel that much more comfortable. So those are very, small things that you can do. I think that, teachers and guidance counselors reaching out to their PTAs when they see, that a child is in need of something, that there are so many resources out there that can actually help you help these kids in the classroom. But you all are doing it, so I'm feeling very confident about your strategies going forward.
Yeah, I guess I'd love to chime in here. The teachers at my school and you guys, and of course, advocates in the community, thank you so much. I have never seen so much collaboration in my life from the teachers, flexibility. So many teachers will email me saying, hey, I noticed this kid was a little off in class today. They're seeing things that maybe they haven't paid attention to before because they've been experiencing so many difficulties in their own lives. There's really been a big push in my school. I know someone had mentioned this earlier, where mental health is just more than ever a focus in my school, which I'm so happy about. People are vulnerable, they're open, they're sharing, teachers are sharing, students are sharing more. The teachers are collaborating with us. We're having grade level meetings twice a quarter to talk about kids that teachers are noticing are struggling mentally, academically, otherwise. I'm just so thrilled at the amount of collaboration that has been going on during this time. And thank you so much for the work you guys are all doing. I'm really happy to be working in such a collaborative space where I can communicate openly with teachers and really everyone at the school. The administrators have been really invested in mental health and prioritizing it. So I guess that's the piece I wanted to add.
Great.
I'll definitely add on from there. I think for me, going into the future, I feel like mental health is so important, and I think just from a policy standpoint, like I know about a month ago, the mayor was considering, uh, I think, around $20 million to help fund and expand the school safety officer program in the schools. And I really feel strongly that our schools are like very over policed, and in New York City's just the school safety like division is actually larger than some police forces in like major cities throughout the country. So when you think about it like that, it's really astonishing how policed our schools are, but also comparing the amount of officers that we have in schools with guidance counselors and social workers. Like, it's just, the comparison is just like, I think it's outrageous. I think right now we have around 2,000 guidance counselors. I might be misquoting that, but and like a similar number for social workers in schools. So I think that needs to really change. And we really need to prioritize, and like, and this should have happened prior to the pandemic. Like, it shouldn't take this to make us realize that we need to prioritize the mental and emotional health and well-being of our students. And I think that needs to change on a policy and structural level. And I would hope that happens in the next year moving forward.
Yeah, Selena, thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. And in terms of like what support that we need, I feel like all of us in this space, like we're all on the same page. And teachers are, speaking from a teacher, we're tired. We're tired. Everyone's tired. But I'm really hoping that people start to, we're tired and we're fighting. Like we are mobilizing, we are ready to go. We are revolutionizing our curriculum, revolutionizing our classrooms, we're revolutionizing our schools. And like we need as much support as possible to revolutionize the entire system. It often feels like we are fighting against a lot and we're on our own. And the more that we can have spaces like this and the more that we can hear from each other in the different arenas of caring for the whole child and the different entities, the more that, I mean, Katie can attest to this. I'm always about the revolution and flipping tables and stuff like that. But like, that's what we need is more solidarity and working together to speak out and change things. So yeah, I would just add that a little bit.
So we have to move on to, not have to, I'm excited to move on to questions from everybody. I just want to acknowledge that, especially thank you, Selena and Charlie, you jumped right into the question I didn't get to ask and really wanted to ask, which had to do with structural barriers from taking care of the whole child. Because I feel like I want to just acknowledge there's such a beautiful conversation that has been happening about the personal, and we also have to look at the structure, the structural racism that Josephine mentioned, the poverty that relates to that. So just yes, and thank you for bringing that in without me even asking the question. So here we are. Um, and I'd love to open this up now to questions from all of our attendees. And please feel free to type your questions into the chat if that's your preference, or if you'd like to, I think, raise your hand, we can do it that way also. Oh, I see a hand. Is that Juliana Hubbard? Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for everything you've shared so far. At the beginning of introductions, Selena mentioned, you know, last year we were kind of in survival mode in March and such, and then over the summer really thinking about making choices to be more successful while online or hybrid. What have you guys, the four of you, what changes have you found to be really successful, where you've made adjustments and you feel like, now it's healthier, better?
Yeah, I can jump in on that a little bit. One thing for me that's been really important is like that boundary and making sure I'm paying attention to self-care as well, because I want to open my time and space to people, but I also realize I need to take care of myself in order to help people. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it's like, oh, well, I have nothing else to do. I have no excuse, not to answer this email at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So really I've made it an intentional, work-life balance, self-care, big push in my work, because I know that I've experienced compassion fatigue like countless times, even this year. So I'm just making it a priority to make sure I'm stepping away from the screen at times, as well as encouraging my students to do the same.
Yeah, I'll continue. I think this year we've really have tried to really focus on giving high quality live instruction, which last year we struggled. Like we were just like you said, it was this kind of survival mode for a lot of teachers. And I think this year we've gotten much better at trying to replicate what we would be doing in the classroom. But at the same time, one thing we've always been concerned about is too much screen time for students. And we don't want them just sitting in front of a computer all day, like either interacting live with us or doing work. So thinking about ways that we can really give them as many high quality live instructional experiences, but also balance that with giving them time independently to learn and engage in activities that don't require technology all the time.
We have a question in the chat from Edith, which is how do you address boundaries in classrooms? I guess safety boundaries such as maintaining distance and plexiglass. So how do you bring students together, allow them to collaborate and create community while still following all of the safety restrictions?
Well, I'll speak to that. I have not been in my classroom since August. So I know I'm not like addressing specifically your question, but I will say that there are ways. There are still ways to do it. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of breakout rooms. Well, okay. Just giving students opportunity to, because even if, sorry, I'm pretty sure I've developed like adult onset ADD. Even our students who are in the classroom are still learning remotely. Like they're still on their computers, and at least for my school, everyone is still working on computers. So we've really had to think about, and we're such a collaborative school. We don't have desks, we have tables. Like it's been a whirlwind. So we have done a lot of work and we're still doing a lot of work in thinking about how can we get students opportunities to just talk to each other, because they're so distant, whether they're in the building or not. They don't really have opportunities to interact with each other. So I have just been like, if they're working on annotating a text, I open up breakout rooms and let them work together or just be together. I mean, all their cameras are off. Their mics are probably still muted, but like just to be in that, like be in a space together. There are also so many programs out there and so many, like I said, digital literacy is skyrocketed. There's so many ways to, like Padlet. I love Padlet. Jamboard, I'm not a huge fan of, but Jamboard's a thing. Like Nearpod has a collaborate board. We use the chat a lot. We're Zoom. We're not a Google Meets school. We're a Zoom school. And they just talk to each other a lot in the chat, and like keeping the chat on, even for side conversations at this point, because I just want you to interact with each other. I want you to just like be. So we got on a great tangent today about something in the chat. We're talking about like chicken nuggets, but like, you know what I mean? Just like being community and being people together. And knowing that the work will get done when it gets done. If it does, it's okay if it doesn't. Really what matters is that they can have opportunities to just talk to each other. And we've built such a culture where like students are saying, hey, I'm going to make a Zoom room after school. Come join me. Like they're starting to use the resources that we've been given to just interact.
Thank you. Next question, and Josephine, I'm wondering if you would jump in on this next one. Have you had trouble with students disappearing from school because of online experience? And how behind has the online experience made students? And I just wanted to add in, I think this is related. I've been thinking a lot about access to the online experience because the families I work with, immigrant families, refugee families, don't always have the kind of internet and technological access. And so I'm wondering how that impacts students' ability to like be in school, and if you all have noticed that. So I'd
Yes.
love to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, with students living in shelters, usually absenteeism is more of an issue than if you have a stable home for, pretty obvious reasons. But certainly for now, it's an enormous issue. And so what the DOE has been doing is that they're sending now liaisons to the shelters to start knocking on doors and trying to help, because
Mm.
the issue with Wi-Fi and devices breaking down and not being replaced quickly enough just continues to be ongoing. So, I'd love to see. I believe that even when we return to the fall, there's probably still going to be some sort of remote component to all of this. Certainly with the class sizes that we have, at least in my district, are enormous. So I don't know how they're going to get even 3 feet apart, let alone 6 feet apart. But yes, so that's what's happening. We need to really find a way of engaging with these families that are not showing. There are families that we're still trying to track down. I don't know if they left because of the pandemic and just never told anybody. A lot of our school budgets, well, we've been given relief now. We don't have to pay the money back. But since enrollment has been down at so many of our schools, we're still trying to figure out exactly what has happened to some of these students.
Yeah, thank you. Charlotte, did you have something to add? I saw a big old yes in the chat. I didn't know. Charlie, sorry.
Yes,
I read instead of. Mhm.
I didn't want to encroach. I was typing furiously in the chat, but yes, I think one of the most disheartening things and most difficult things about this experience is realizing how little control that we have. And I love control. I think it's what makes me a great teacher. And when I cannot, we have in many ways for a lot of families done everything that we can, and there's still families that we have never seen and can never reach, or will come every once in a while. And to help me keep going is to focus on the times when they are there, to maximize that and make the most of the time when I do have them, make the most of the time when they do turn something in on Google Classroom. I cannot say more than focus on what you do have control over, and what you don't. For my sake, I have to let go sometimes, because it's that was the cause of my 2 days off when I couldn't do it anymore, was because I felt so helpless. I have felt helpless many times this in this year and some change, and yeah, I'm maximizing the time that I do have with them.
Yeah, I feel like there are these themes I'm hearing of the question of what we can control and what we can't, or maybe where we can make contact, where that contact is possible. And the theme that I should have expected but didn't, which is our own whole people, our own whole humanity, as we think about the whole child. Um, we have just a few minutes left. There's a final question, and I'd love to invite you to either answer the question, or if there are final words that you would like to leave us with, that would be wonderful. Also, the question is from Ting Lei Huang, and it's, what advice would you give to a brand new teacher who's going to start their teaching career in fall 2021? So any words of wisdom answering that question, or other words you'd like to leave us with before we close?
Sure, I'm happy. So I'm not a teacher, but it was my first school year at my current school. So the best advice I could give is just try to be involved in any way you can, whether it's, you know, advising a club, or being involved in committees with, you know, issues related to things that you're passionate about. Really try to insert yourself, into the community in whatever way you can, whether the school's in person or remote. There's different ways to quote unquote show your face around the school. So just getting to know teachers, students, families, just try to stay connected in any way you can, and you'll find a way to get through. And thank you everyone for having me and listening to me.
Thank you so much, Deanna.
I want to follow up with what you said, Deanna. I completely agree. Really get to know your school culture and your school community, because it can be, first year teaching can be really lonely, and first year teaching can be really lonely, and building those connections is really, really important. And at the same time, the biggest thing that I've learned and taken away from this year, and Deanna, you mentioned this in like your self-care, my motto this year, and what I've never said no more in my life, and that's been really important. My motto is, I don't have the capacity for that right now. And it's really, really important to remember why it is that you chose to do this. What do they say? What's your why? But like, actually, like, why are you doing this? What are you here to do? What have you, why do you want to be a teacher? And take care of yourself, and hold on to that why, and remember to say no when you can't do something, and remember to follow up when you can, and give yourself grace. Those are I'm speaking to myself right now, because I feel like a first year teacher again, in this crazy world. So that's my 2 cents. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And thank you so much, panelists. It's been so great to hear from you and learn from you.
Wow.
I wanted to, I'm
yes,
sorry.
Go ahead, Selena. Please.
No, I just wanted to jump in really quickly. I know we're wrapping up, but I wanted to just share too, like the best advice that I ever got as a first year teacher was from my former field supervisor, Katie Ledwell, who said, she said, always be open to being yourself with the students. And like, that's what really matters the most. Like, they want to see who you really are, and don't be afraid to show that. And like, that has helped me so much, because when they really see you for you, like nothing else matters. Like, you make that human connection, like Charlie was saying, and with that foundation, everything else will come.
I love that. And I'm not surprised at all that you got that from Katie, because she's really so wonderful. The best advice that I could give is to just check in with your students. How are you today? Like, that has to be the main question, right? Just all the time. How are you today? Kids really respond to that. They know that, they're in a safe space, if the teacher is concerned about actually how they're doing, how they're feeling. And that's going to be a very big question for this school year. So just checking in and leading with truth and compassion. And I don't think that you can go wrong. So thank you so much for having me today. This has been really a great conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm moved, more moved than I had expected. I feel like I need to just pause and take a deep breath and take in everything you've all shared. I hope you see in the chats the enormous thank yous. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And most of all, I want to thank you all for the work that you continue to do. It's, earth-shattering. It's amazing. And thanks to everyone who joined us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carter. Thank you so much, Sarah. We have a great evening of events available to you. So if you don't already know what TC Next does, we encourage you to please check us out at tc.columbia.edu/tcnext. If you are hoping to grab a copy of this schedule, no need to take a snappy screenshot. you have two options. Just a couple minutes ago, I put the link to this as well as all of the Zooms in the chat, so you can just scroll up. I'll put it back in before we close this out. And if you are interested in a QR code to grab it on your mobile device, we encourage you to just take a quick snapshot of that, and that will get you to the next event as well. Thank you so much. If you already have all the Zoom links available to you, feel free to close out this meeting and head over to the next. We will see you throughout the evening. Thanks for being with us.
Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Gosh, they were earth-shattering. That was beautiful. They were amazing.
Yeah, I was in the same space, I think, as you at the end, where I just wanted to sit for a minute. Really beautiful.
Yeah,
I think most of our participants have moved on to the next event, which is great. I was hoping that our panelists might stick around for a moment so
I know.
say thank you, but that's okay. We'll be sure to send them a little something.
Great. I'm going to send them all an email, but that's great. Good if we can send them.
Don't let that stop you from sending an email. You know, it's okay if they get showered with gratitude. Oh, it looks like Tom is coming back in.
I wanted to say that I could have listened to this panel for probably the entire evening. If we had made this panel 3 hours, I could have gladly sat and listened to these. Thank you for your diligent moderation, the questions that you prepared, and just the insights that I think we were able to glean from what folks shared is profound. And as these people continue in their career, or at least get ready to take a new step in their career, that this sage wisdom is definitely needed and very much appreciated. So thank you for your time. And if you'd like, stick around, join us for the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got to go to the other side of my life here. And
yes, I was going to say, and I know you have other people at home with you, so enjoy being with them.
Yeah, but thank you all for everything you do.
Thanks
Katie,
so much,
thank
Katie.
you.
I'll see you in the next session.
Take care. Good luck with the rest of this event.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, guys. See you.